Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Music Reviewer Podcast. My name's Josh, and today we are reviewing another album, which will be episode 23. It is going to be our first official country album, and yes, that is accurate, even though we covered Margot Price not too long ago. The Margot Price album really wasn't country music at the end of the day. It was more of like Americana, I don't know, adult alternative rock type of album. But yeah, this is going to be Luke Bryan's latest album, and the title of the album is Born Here, Live Here, Die Here. It is his 10th studio album, and just before we get started, I just want to let everyone know the last episode of the Music Reviewer Podcast was over the latest Stand Atlantic album, Pink Elephant. I thought that was a fun pop-punk album. I was happy to cover something in that genre. Hopefully I'll be able to cover something in relation to that, but pretty happy I discovered Stand Atlantic and was able to review the album. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So if you don't happen to know Luke Bryan by now, or you're just not an avid country music listener, I guess I'll give you a lowdown on who he is. He's an American country singer-songwriter, megastar at this point, that was born in Georgia. He's the son of a peanut farmer, according to Wikipedia. Ended up signing to Capitol Nashville in 2007 after kind of doing the singer-songwriter thing and writing songs for artists like Billy Currington and Travis Tritt after graduating from college, which, according to Wikipedia, he graduated in 1999 and then 2 years later decided to move to Nashville. So I guess in the early 2000s, he was really grinding and probably doing the songwriter thing and kind of just doing what he had to do. But it ended up paying off. He is regarded as probably one of the biggest country stars ever at this point, mainly in terms of like stats, but I'm sure at one point in time, as long as he keeps on doing music, he could, be regarded as like a George Strait, if you will, or maybe I guess a less outlaw Johnny Cash in terms of like, just name value. But I guess over the span of since 2007, which is now 13 years, he has had 23 number one hits on country airplay charts, which is ridiculous, I'd say. I don't know the record, but I'm assuming he's probably at the top or near the top. And he's also gotten to becoming a American Idol judge till this day, which I think started in 2018, which, say what you will about American Idol, but he at least has some mainstream relevance by being on that show. So in a way, if there was a face of country music, it could be Luke Bryan. And I guess in terms of music, he is a pretty straightforward guy, country artist. A lot of his songs are about women, drinking, fishing, you name it. If it's a country trope, he's probably sang about it or sung about it. But he does have some talent overall. He did start off as a songwriter and writing songs like Good Directions for Billy Currington. And I'd say that's probably one of his strong suits. His voice is pretty good, I'd say. It is distinguishable, especially within country music. A lot of people sound the same. So overall, he is quite talented. And I'd say his success really doesn't kind of equate to like his image or I guess reputation, amongst music people in general or country people in general. He's kind of regarded as one of the douchebags that made bro country big, and the whole bro country phenomenon is kind of its own, subject matter in itself. And I can't really go over bro country right now. It's too long. There's too many artists. I'm assuming it started at somewhere when Luke Bryan was taking off in the late 2000s, and the ripple effects still are are still playing out right now on country radio and country music in general. But nonetheless, yes, the Luke Bryan phenomenon, I guess, just to recap, started in 2007. He signed his record deal. Since then, he's released 10 albums. And I'd say this track that kind of started it all my friends say, is probably a great song to just, if you're ever going to listen to Luke Bryan, to kind of just get your hands on. I'd say it covers just about all you need. Personally, I don't think I ever heard of Luke Bryan until maybe I was a sophomore in high school. The song "Do I" was a really big hit. I remember around that time. And for some reason around that time too, I was just listening like country music around that time, like Rodney Atkins, Alan Jackson, and I'm not even a big country music guy. I have since have expanded my palette. I guess around the time I was also fond of groups like Lady Antebellum and Brad Paisley. I'm sure I'm leaving out a few more. But I guess one that was always there in the mix was Luke Bryan. I was also into like some Billy Currington too, but that phase didn't last that long. And yeah, this now we are here in 2020, and Born Here, Live Here, Die Here has arrived. I'd say overall the album is kind of just a hodgepodge of like different country subgenres, where Bryan tries to highlight maybe some of his influences track to track, because he's in this album he's ditched the bro country aesthetic. I think it's kind of over and done with at this point, and he's probably seen the writing on the wall. And this track has some bro country still, but I'd say for the most part, each track has its own character and I guess distinct sound. There's not really kind of like a concept going on here. I feel like this is just a mixed bag of tracks that were recorded over some amount of time. And I'd say that this is probably an improvement since his last release that I briefly went over, What Makes You Country, which I believe released, I think around 2017. Let's see here, I have it up. Yeah, 2017. And I'd say this was a huge success for him. It only made him bigger, which had tracks like Light It Up, Most People Are Good, Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset. I'd say Light It Up and Sunrise, Sunburn, Sunset were heavily in the bro country palette. Most People Are Good was more of a charming track, a feel-good track, but still very much a Luke Bryan type of song. Yeah, I mean, I guess the overall consensus is that he's not very good in terms of like country diehards. So I kind of went into this album just trying to be somewhat open-minded. I wasn't expecting a good or decent album. I kind of went in with pretty low expectations. And I've been really seeking to cover a country artist since this podcast started. And it just so happened that one of the biggest ones right now and possibly ever dropped an album. And overall, this album I'm quite indifferent. I don't think it's terrible, and I also don't think it's substantial, for the most part. There are some decent tracks on here. I'd say just going from the beginning, the track Knockin' Boots, it is a hit on the radio, or it was released some time ago. This was the first lead single, but the album got delayed. So this track really doesn't feel like it was meant to be on this album, but it did anyways. I don't really have too much to say about it. To me, it wasn't really a highlight. To me, it has like this stupid happy-go-lucky lyrical material, like the things need things message, which is super, I guess, oversimplified. It features like cheap snap percussion in the production for most of the song. It's annoying and loud. There's a terrible reverb effect on Bryan's voice. Overall, the song is quite catchy if you're just listening to it on the radio, but it's just a little too oversimplified. It sounds like generic country music. I'd say the next track is an improvement, What She Wants Tonight. I'd say this, however, still is in the bro country vein. It has this mid-2010s country aesthetic with this sleek bro country melodic lead guitar that opens up with a riff in the intro. Throughout the song, the guitars are just pretty buried in the chorus and the verses at times. There are some decent guitar riffs that are thrown in and out of the second verse, I'd say. if you really want to try listening for it. The track reminds me of a Dustin Lynch type of track. It kind of has like this muted guitar groove. I thought that was one of the, better parts of the track. And Dustin Lynch being one of the bigger bro country artists right now. And lyrically, it's bro country in the subject matter. It's a I'm drinking with a girl song, and it's heavily immersed in the aesthetic. It goes for that big chorus though. It's the obvious strength in the song. The knocking track that on the second and fourth beat, especially on the beginning of the track, that's like meant to replace the snare hit. It's not very good. It sounds quite terrible and cheap. Overall, the track just has this arena rock kind of aesthetic too. It has like this guitar solo that feels very arena rock. The song overall maybe could use some low end as well. And it's just a little sappy, but let's take it back a little bit. This is an improvement over Knocking Boots. I did say some bad stuff about What She Wants Tonight, but overall, I mean, in terms of like a bro country song, it's okay. The next track, I'd say we get into like this hodgepodge kind of idea where Born Here, Live Here, Die Here. It kind of sounds like an Eric Church song at the beginning. There's some obvious influence from like Eric Church's aesthetic. There's some like quick rhythmic vocal lines that sound very similar to what Eric Church would sing. I like the organic soundscape at the intro though. It's not bad. But overall, like the subject matter, it's very pandering to like this country, small town, like right wing, like culture, which is smart. And I wouldn't expect any less, but it's just a little cheesy. It maybe could be on the nose when it's pandering to that, but I think that'd be giving the track too much credit. There's just so many tropes thrown in the song as well, to the piano embellishments in the second verse and the guitar solo. It's exactly what you'd expect to happen. Despite the variation and like the aesthetic and how this song is very different from the previous track, I'd say this is probably the weakest song so far. The next track is One Margarita, which I think is the most recent hit. And when this song first came out, I was like, okay, Luke Bryan's doing his thing. It's a radio hit. There's some obvious Kenny Chesney influence. It's a song about drinking during the day. You can't really get mad at that. It's what you'd expect. I'd say though that the song, when you really listen to it, there's just like this cheap synthetic sound in the voice, especially in the chorus when he's singing that one margarita, two margarita part. It's really weird. It sounds very synthetic, almost robotic. There's some nice grooves at times, especially in the bass and the low end. And I'd say the one interesting thing is there's like this layered vocal thing that's happening on Bryan's voice. I'm not sure if it was an actual different singer singing on the low end, but it's kind of makes me wonder, like, why was that so prominent in the mix? I don't know if maybe Bryan's voice just wasn't strong enough to pull it off. Or if that was just an artistic choice. It's just a little aloof. It just doesn't sound good when you really try listening into it. The next track, though, I thought was an improvement, Too Drunk to Drive. It has this obvious Texas country influence. It reminds me of the song Kiss Me in the Dark by the Randy Rogers Band. Now, that song by this point in time is quite old, but it's kind of a little late for Luke Bryan to be borrowing from this genre or subgenre, but I like that it was thrown in here. It kind of makes me wonder what could have been if he went in that direction. It has this muted guitar groove and some bright acoustic guitar instrumentation. Lyrically, it's kind of a fucked up song. I mean, it's just unapologetic on, meeting someone at the club and being enthralled and wanting to hook up with them right then and there. And just the whole symbolism of being drunk just by looking at them. It's definitely a song that's meant to be played at like a local country bar for like drunk people to dance to. The instrumentation does fit well. I like the track overall in terms of production and like, I guess, composition. There's some nice organs, some present guitars. The melodic guitar lines in the outro are quite decent as well. Probably one of the stronger songs on this album so far. But then we kind of just go into like this weird shift where we have Build Me a Daddy, which is an obvious song that's supposed to pull on the emotions and appeal to like the pathos. It's a down-tempo track. It's a storytelling track. It's kind of fucked up on the lyrical content as well. It's about a child losing their dad to a war, and it's pandering to the fallen soldiers trope that happens all too often in country music. And I understand the importance of honoring fallen troops, but to capitalize on it for a commercial hit, in my opinion, is a little untasteful. Overall, the song is an okay composition. It probably features Bryan's best vocal performance on here. The guitar accompaniment and the rest of the instrumentation is used nicely. And the guitar tone, I go back to it, is quite nice, actually. I enjoyed that part. Given maybe not the subject matter of the song, I'd say it's probably one of the better songs on this album. And then we have A Little Less Broken, which I think is a positive on this album. There's some light instrumentation. It's a bar romance type of song. So there's some nice colors thrown in and out at times. Like, it has the aesthetic of a 90s country song, maybe like some Brooks and Dunn. It probably features the best drum track on here, and instrumentation is just solid. It's a subdued track, it's mid-tempo, and it all just kind of works together. And it kind of ditches the bro country aesthetic, and it kind of just shows what he was capable of this whole time. Like I said, it's a hodgepodge. Now we're like in 90s country. The next track I didn't think was too interesting for a boat. I think is probably the most filler track on this album. It's not bad. It's not significant either, really. Just a bunch of country tropes here. Where Are We Going is the next track, and I thought this was probably the most interesting song, not the best, but just in terms of like what was put on this album, because this probably wouldn't have been put on a Luke Bryan album in his past albums. It features a female vocalist, an uncredited one at that, that just does a good job on this track. I mean, she sounds decent when she's on here. There's some organic instrumentation, some plucked guitar lines, some rich and lush textures when the strings come in. There's some nice slide guitar, and it kind of all just comes together on this big chorus, and it tries to go for that effect. It's not really something that you would hear on mainstream country radio. I don't think this track has a chance to be on country radio, and it's kind of a good thing on this album. It's kind of this track is kind of Americana-like. It's not very douchey or in your face. There's some scenic imagery in the track. It's interesting, and I'd say there's really nothing too bad about it either. And then the album is kind of gone to an end. We kind of come to an end on the album on the next track, Down to One, which I feel this track could have been scrapped. To me, it doesn't make sense to be on the album. I think it's just another grab at another hit, possibly. I would expect this to be a single. It's just a very mid-tempo poppy track. There's drum machine in here, some keyboard organ tones that kind of just come together with like this pop aesthetic. It almost doesn't sound country. It's obviously made for the radio, and I'd say you can probably use the newly coined term boyfriend country on this song. All it's missing is a Justin Bieber appearance, or maybe even a hip-hop verse. That's how I guess poppy and I guess tangent like this track is. If someone threw like Sway Lee on here, that would say, okay, that's really not that far off. There's some sappy lyrics on here. I'd say Bryan sounds least present on this vocal performance here. Very glitzy production. I'd say a positive. The melodic elements on the track aren't bad outside of the vocals. It's just a very confusing track. It's like on the level of like a Maroon 5 like sounding track. It's really inoffensive. It's sanitary. It's a huge contrast to like the song Too Drunk to Drive, I'd say, which is a dirty bar song about hooking up with someone after meeting them for the first time. So yeah, like I said, it's a hodgepodge. This album has a lot of ups and downs, and for that reason, I'd say it's a 5 out of 10. I feel like if they stuck to like maybe that Eric Church sound, that the maybe some more Americana, some 90s references, some Texas country. This could have been a great album. This album kind of makes me a little unpleased at the potential that Bryan has had this whole entire time, because the highlights are highlights and the lowlights are lowlights, because when we end on something like Down to One, it's just sanitary and I guess useless in the grand scope of the album. So hopefully this album kind of just is more of a starting point for him to kind of just do whatever he wants and not confined to like bro country anymore. And admittedly, I did like some bro country. I'll say that. So and always take my opinion with a grain of salt. This is just me pointing out what I liked and what I didn't like, but in no way am I an authority on country music or Luke Bryan. But yeah, if you got it this far to the review, thanks for listening. My name's Josh. I'm a music reviewer, and I'll catch you guys soon.